Radio Nowhere by Lee Beard. Chapter 1. Newark, New Jersey. Wednesday, Week 1. The man swung his camera bag lightly over his shoulder and yawned broadly, bumping his way through the crowded airport. He had been running on very little sleep since his photo shoot for National Geographic had ended, the week-long excursion to one of the most remote communities in Zambia that allowed his 14-person to document some of the most intimate facets of life in the tiny village. He had gotten to witness a burial ritual when one of the members passed away suddenly toward the end of their visit. The fact that the villager died while in the prime of his life with hardly any prior symptoms didn't even register as the man moved through the crowds, dooming everyone he breathed on. Luggage can be picked up at stations 13 and 14. Have a safe journey, and thank you for flying Air International. Welcome home. 3 connecting flights later, he was finally back in New Jersey, and what he assumed were the effects of sleep deprivation were beginning to wear on him. If he could just make it home, then he could recoup the lost sleep, and then some. After picking up his luggage, the man made his way to the airport's parking garage where he loaded up his Jeep, paid the parking stub, and began the 2-hour drive home. About an hour into the trek, he began to seriously regret the decision to not stay at a nearby hotel. He turned on the radio to try to fight the exhaustion, settling back in his seat as the Creedence Clearwater Revival song crooned. Suddenly, the Jeep swerved off the interstate and slammed into a lamppost. The 3 cars that were on the road pulled over immediately, the passengers running out to the totaled Jeep. The man opened his eyes just for a second to see a blurry figure at his window just before losing consciousness. Chapter 2. Watertown, New York. Saturday, Week 2. Only 2 of the 4 lights in this row of the mobile homes worked, giving the shadows and shapes an eerie glow in the hours before the sun rose. Zach adjusted the backpack on his shoulder as he made his way down to the narrow roadway, avoiding the puddles left at last night's storm. Suddenly, headlights illuminated his shadow in front of him, and he quickly spun around just in time to jump back and off the asphalt as a silver pickup barreled past him. His string of curses was returned by the middle finger out the driver's window. With that, the near-daily ritual was complete. Zach gritted his teeth, green eyes narrowing, and made a mental note to accidentally drop nails on the guy's driveway later. It was only a matter of time before the truck's owner wrecked or mowed down somebody important, and Zach would be there with popcorn to watch the fallout. "Hey, bub." An elderly man with a short white beard stuck his head out of a nearby white 10 trailer and grinned at Zach. "Hey, Olson," Zach waved, anger dissipating. Olson had lived in the same trailer longer than Zach had been alive, greeting him the same way every morning. "Pretty strange weather we're having, isn't it?" Olson adjusted his round glasses slightly, glancing at the dark sky. "Sure enough." Zach stopped walking to talk to him. "The weatherman says there's talking there might be sunshine next week, but I learned way back that you can't trust a man in a suit, especially—" Olson stopped, a coughing fit cutting off the last of his sentence. "Beg your pardon, bub. I guess these old lungs are finally starting to go on me." He shook his head and cackled. "Oh, by the way," Olson snapped his fingers in remembrance, "I found a new antenna for my radio. We can talk to them Canucks again." "Oh yeah?" A retired engineer, Olson had been collecting parts of his ham radio station in front of his trailer for years, drafting anything from bits of tinfoil to discarded speakers to join his radio army. It wasn't unusual for Olson to ride his Oldsmobile, a custom-made 3-wheeled bicycle with a large basket attached to the back, out of the chain-link fence early one morning and return at midnight with a wagon full of metal bits. The old man grinned again. "Gotta rewire things, but it'll do. Make sense?" "Makes total sense." Zach smiled. "Good. I like making sense. Should have it fixed when you get back." "I can't wait to see it," Zach said truthfully. "Here's hoping it'll be a short work week, though they're really trying to get the most out of us before school's back in." "Good." The old man nodded happily, his head bobbing like a bird. "Tell that foreman that Olson says to let you slip out early today and see what happens." Zach chuckled. "Will do. See you later, Olson. You take care of that cough, okay?" "Will do, bub." Olson turned and shuffled back into his trailer. Zach continued to the fence and began the slow walk to work. Isherwood, Pennsylvania, Week 2. Millie lightly thudded down the hallway, drawn by the smell of bacon wafting through the kitchen. She patted across the dining room floor in her fuzzy bunny slippers and thump! Stubbed her big toe on the kitchen door jamb for the 13th time since her family had moved into the start of the summer. "Gah!" Millie's face contorted as she clutched her foot. Millie? Nina called. Is that you? Millie hobbled the rest of the way into the kitchen and forced a smile onto her face. Nana chuckled from behind the stove. You've got to be more wary of the door jamb. It's a sneaky little thing. Millie put her foot down and wiggled her toes to make sure they were still working. Nana skillfully slid the bacon from the pan directly into the waiting plate. Millie scanned the kitchen table. Bacon, eggs, and French toast were nicely arranged on the blue china, which were centered beside a full glass of orange juice on the frilly placements in front of 3 of the chairs that surrounded the table. What's the special occasion? Millie nicked a piece of bacon from one of the plates. It's your father's birthday, remember? Steam hissed angrily as Nana washed out the hot pan. Oh, shoot! Millie swallowed hard. You didn't forget, did you, Amelia? Nana's face was stern as she dried the pan with a dish towel, but her dark eyes danced with amusement. Who, me? Millie pouted innocently and dodged the dish towel Nana flicked at her. Why would I do such a terrible thing? I assume it was not done on purpose, but you must be more careful of such things. Nana wagged a plump finger at Millie, suppressing a smile. Millie smiled at her great-aunt's odd manner of speaking, a direct result of living next to a bookstore that specialized in out-of-print books when she was growing up. I thought it would be a kind gesture to send your father off to a clinic with a good breakfast, Nana continued. He needs to keep up his strength if he's going to be fixing broken people all day. Now, help your dear Nana. Get 2 brooms and the dustpan out of the storage room. If we hurry, we'll clean the floor before breakfast. Millie studied Nana fondly as they swept. Her short black hair had silver streaks woven throughout. I got this one, Nana told her years earlier, pointing out a gray strip, when you stood on the back of the couch and decided to fly. And this one came when you tried to cheer up that scary bald man in the park. Nana dumped the dustpan in the trash, tapping it against the side to loosen any stubborn particles. All done. She turned back to Millie and caught her staring. What is it? I was just thinking. Millie leaned her broom against the wall. It's going to be really different around here when you leave. No. Nana placed her broom and dustpan next to the other broom before taking Millie's face into her hands. It'll be just like this, only I won't be here. Millie laughed and Nana patted her face gently. It will only be for 2 months. Just enough time to visit and get reacquainted with old friends. California is not a world away. Millie raised a hand to cover Nana's, closing her dark eyes. I'm just gonna miss you. I know you will, beloved, Nana said softly. I'll miss you both as well, but you'll see me again. The old woman pulled the younger into a hug. They stayed like that until they heard a familiar whistling from the hallway. Now, Nana pulled back. Be happy. It's time to celebrate. Something smells thump! Gah! The 2 turned toward the door as Dr. Tim Macareg's grimacing face appeared in the doorway. We've got to do something about that doorway. Like daughter, like father, Nana chortled. Maybe we should hang a sign at the entryway. He drew a box in the air. Caution, this door jamb is malicious and will take your toes off. Millie grinned as he limped over. Or perhaps you should have listened to me as a child and learned to pick your feet up when you walk. Nana tisk-tisk, a gleam in her eye. Happy birthday, Timothy. She stood on tiptoe to receive a hug. Thanks, Auntie. Tim smiled, turning to Millie. Morning, Mill. Happy birthday, Father dear, Millie said, kissing his cheek. She looked at Nana before leaning in to whisper loudly, Regardless of what she tells you, I did not forget. Tim glanced at Nana, made an okay with his fingers, and gave an overdramatic wink before turning back to Millie. Of course you didn't. I'd have to disown you for such an unforgivable sin. Millie laughed and Nana clucked her tongue. She grabbed their wrists and pulled them toward the kitchen table. Enough of your tomfoolery. The food is getting cold. Treaton, Texas, Saturday, week 2. Max, stop it, get off me. Gina pushed the boy away and sat up. She scooted over to the passenger seat of the old pickup and turned off the radio, cutting Elvis off mid-croon. The parking lot was deserted, and the only light coming from the lone lamppost in the middle of the asphalt. What's the matter, baby? Mike gave her a quick look over. Don't baby me. I want to go home. Gina tugged her t-shirt back into place and leaned against the door. Works for me. No, I want you to drop me off. Oh, come on, babe. Mike tried to slide an arm around her. I'll make it worth your while. She pulled away from him. I said no, not tonight. Please, just take me home now. In a bit. There's no rush, he said, leaning in to kiss her neck. Back off! Gina shoved him away. Damn it, Gina! He banged his fist on the wheel exasperatedly. One minute you're all over me and the next you're Miss Prude. Can you just make up your fool mind already? They sat in the back in silence for a moment before Mike slid his hand above her knee, just below the hem of her cut-off jean skirt. Do you love me or not? Gina's mouth opened to form a response, but nothing came out. Mike suddenly moved his hand higher and she grabbed his wrist. Love ain't a free pass, she snapped, pushing his hand off her leg. She threw open the door and jumped out, slamming it angrily behind her. She folded her arms and headed towards the deserted parking lot's edge. Gina, where do you think you're going? Come back! Mike yelled out the open passenger door's window. Fine, who needs you? We got through, you hear me? Through! Good riddance! Gina yelled over her shoulder as the truck squealed off into the night. She straightened her skirt and attempted to wipe the remainder of free sample lipstick from around her mouth with the back of her hand. Her well-worn brown boots crunched angrily on the sand that blended the parking lot's edge with the 10-acre field next to it. The Piggly Wiggly store's owner tried to keep the lot clean, but the arid West Texas wind wouldn't hear of it. Gina pushed her short ginger hair back with the headband that sat askew on her head, frowning as her bangs fell defiantly back in her eyes. As the patches of sand gave way to dry grass, she became suddenly aware of the dark that surrounded her. A dog pack barked in the distance, making the hair on the back of her neck stand on end. She looked up at the full moon, thankful for some sort of light, no matter how small. This was the fastest way home, but Gina began to regret not following the road of the highway. Though with my luck, I'd probably get run over by something, she thought. Gina hummed quietly to herself to drown out the sound of the dark as she approached the barbed wire fence that connected the field to the Wilsons' pasture. She passed through here many times on her weekly grocery trips or to the occasional run to the Piggly Wiggly for odds and ends. Sliding under the lowest wire, she resumed the trek home, not even taking the time to brush off the hay. She slunk through the pasture on a hill, hunkering low so that if for some reason Mr. and Mrs. Wilson were on the lookout of their bedroom window, she wouldn't be spotted trespassing. She crept past a few sleeping cows, hopped over cow patties, and squeak-talked the resident old bull, who didn't even stop chewing his cud long enough to consider her a threat. Finally, she made it across and slipped under the fence. Gina smiled at the expanse of the field in front of her, sloped downward as if it was carved especially for her convenience. She took off running, the hot August air blowing through her short mane and billowing her loose blue tank top. Treaton's High School had shut down the track program in the middle of the last semester when the team reduced down to 3 people, and Gina had forgotten just how much she missed running. As the landscape leveled out, she slowed to a trot and finally to a quick walk. When her feet hit the asphalt of the road that ran past her driveway, she gave a sigh of relief. Almost there. The gravel crunched as she marched up her driveway. Suddenly, a large furry mass flew at her from the darkness, eliciting a stunned yell from the terrified girl. It barked and wagged its rear end. Hank, what are you doing out here? Gina scolded the panting dog after recovering from the initial shock. Hank stood on his hind legs to try and lick her chin. She pushed him down, patted the mutt's black and blue speckled head, and continued up the driveway. How did you get out of the house? The dog trotted up ahead toward the white farmhouse, and Gina stopped cold. The 18-wheeler shone menacingly in the light of the lamppost, its entire lower half spattered with mud. Oh no. Gina took a deep breath and quickly crept the rest of the way to the house, sneaking around to the back porch. She plucked the spare key from its hiding place in the gutter spout, snuck up the porch steps, and unlocked the green door. Mercifully, the hinges did not squeak as it swung open into the kitchen. Gina cautiously peered around the door into the darkness, listening intently for any sounds of movement. She held her breath as she quickly entered and shut the door behind her. She slipped her boots off and carried them across the wood floor towards the hallway. If she could just get up the stairs. Where the hell have you been? Gina jumped as the light turned on. She squinted toward the sound of the growling noise, trying to think of a viable excuse. Dirk, you're home early. I thought your route wouldn't be done till Thursday. The man stepped into the light, glaring. He was slumped slightly, but built like a bulldozer. I drove fast. Seems like a good thing I did, too. Dirk scowled angrily down at Gina's smeared makeup, short skirt, and hay-covered exterior. Looks like my dear stepdaughter hadn't been the good girl she's supposed to be. He took a few menacing steps forward past the fridge, stumbling on the last step. Gina swallowed hard, eyeing the nearby empty bottle in the man's beefy hand. You want to tell me why you're out running around after midnight? Dirk slurred slightly, taking another step forward. 'Cause that's one thing I'd really like to know. Now. Gina unconsciously backed up a step and tried to keep her voice steady. I just went through a walk. Do you always dress like that when you go for a walk? Well, Gina faltered slightly. I actually... Liar! Dirk roared, charging forward. Gina gasped and stumbled backwards, tripping over the dining table. Dirk dropped the bottle, shattering it on the floor. He grabbed Gina's shoulders, lifting her small frame off the ground and slamming her onto the wall. Where were you? He snarled. The smell of alcohol in his breath was overpowering. Gina opened her mouth to say something, but words refused to form. Answer me! He shook her before dropping her back to the ground. You were that damn Crawford boy again, weren't you? Gina looked to the floor for answers. He grabbed her face and jerked it up, forcing her to meet his bloodshot eyes. I want an answer! Yeah, I was, Gina cried, Dirk's grip burning her face. But nothing happened, we broke up! He dropped her immediately, his entire demeanor changing. So that's how it is it? Dirk took a few steps back, face unreadable behind his scraggly red beard. They took in the silence for a few torturous moments before Dirk spoke again, low and serious. You better not have gotten yourself pregnant. I ain't gonna take care of 2 of your mama's mistakes. He gave Gina one last heart-stopping glare before turning and storming towards the living room. Also, he added over his shoulder, that damn dog was stuck in the house. If it happens again, I'll shoot it. As the door slammed behind him, Gina bolted for the hallway before he could think of something else to berate her for. Hey guys, thanks for listening. If you like what you heard and would like to hear more, please click the like and subscribe button. Links to buy the book are down in the description, as are the links to my Twitter, Facebook, and Patreon. My audio reading book promotions are free for any published writers, so if you have a book you want me to read the first chapter from, just shoot me an email with your first chapter, book cover, links to purchase your book, and a brief description to ebonyclock@yahoo.com. See you next time on Ebony Clock Promotions.